Hello, I'm Victor, and this is The Junkyard. You know what's always bothered me in fiction? The inherently inferior being. This can be a species, a team, a classification, but they exist to be the butt of the joke. The victim. The cannon fodder. The cautionary tale. A whole group of beings with virtually no capacity for evolution or self-improvement. To show you what I mean, today we're going to count down my top 5 inferior beings in fiction. Number 5, Gully Dwarves from the Dragonlance book series.
Dirty, selfish, stupid, and cowardly, these inbred cousins of dwarves and kender are the inferior race of Kryn. They're considered barely sentient, regarded as talking rodents. Pitiful, but rarely pitied. Sometimes downright despised, especially by dwarves. I put these guys at the bottom of this list because, although they have been established as inherently inferior, many of the writers of the Dragonlance series seem to share my dislike for the inherent inferiority idea. Even evil races like Draconians and silly races like gnomes have had scenes, stories, and entire books that showed their capacity for nobility and self-reliance. Gully Dwarves are no exception. This is just one of the reasons I recommend Dragonlance to anyone who likes good stories.
Number 4, Hufflepuff from the Harry Potter book series.
The Harry Potter books have had a lot of uncomfortable ideas to me. Characters slinging arrogant racial slurs casually, the government has little regard for non-human sentience, things like that. But the most obvious and soul-crushing idea in the entire Potterverse is that of houses, and that goddamn sorting hat. Sure, it's great if you're sorted into Gryffindor or Ravenclaw, that means you're brave or smart, respectively. Being in Slytherin, it means you're a dick, but at least you're a dick with a strong natural talent. If you get sorted into Hufflepuff, it means you suck. You're unimportant. Uninteresting. You'll barely have a place in any important events, and you may end up as a punchline. I'm sure someone who's read all the books can point out a few moments or characters of note from Hufflepuff, but in general, being sorted into Hufflepuff is how a hat flips you off.
Number 3, the Great Lakes Avengers from Marvel Comics.
Probably the smallest group on this list, the GLA is basically the Marvel Universe's running gag. A bunch of barely competent superheroes with weird, semi-useful powers claiming to be the Midwest branch of the Avengers. While they manage to deal with regular crime, weaker supervillains, and minor disasters with some level of success, they're usually trampled by anything bigger. They've had a few stories specifically about them, some very sympathetic, but they're still usually depicted as wannabes. Add the implications this has about Marvel's view of the Midwest, and these guys were a shoo-in for this list.
Number 2, the Ferengi from Star Trek.
Star Trek has a long tradition of alien races that represent one human trait or ideology. The Vulcans built their civilization on logic, the Klingons on battle, the Hirogen on hunting. The Ferengi? The Ferengi are supposed to represent capitalism from a late 80s, early 90s viewpoint. Thus, they're ugly, greedy, sexist buffoons. Any episode of Trek focusing on them depicts them as oily clowns, and while they did have their moments in DS9, they were usually quite predictable comedy relief.
These guys are my inspiration for doing this list, but I soon realized that they can't hold a candle to number 1, the locals.
There is no form of inferior being so common or widespread in fiction as that of the local, the native, the peasant, the small everyday people who are too weak, stupid, and cowardly to face whatever evil is threatening or oppressing them, and need some handsome white male to bring back peace and order to the land. It's a story as old as the story. This is at number 1 simply because, unless Bruce Willis is one of my subscribers, we can assume that I and everyone watching this is one of these inferior beings.
So there it is, 5 of the most predictably, irredeemably, offensively inferior groups in fiction. To be fair, more and more storytellers, whatever their medium, are beginning to shy away from the creative cop-out of the inherently inferior group, and I hope they keep it up. If you were to ask me why I decided to do this list, I think it would be because I feel that whoever you are, you at least deserve the capacity to be the hero. Well, this has been Victor with The Junkyard. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.
Okay, show of hands. When you saw the title, who was expecting this to be a 5-minute racist diatribe?